really frustrated that the country is silent as education dies. I think we will never be forgiven. The generations that are alive today will never be forgiven for killing education, because that's what we have done. In these 40 years of Mr. Museveni, we have seen the destruction of the education system that educated him. That Mr. Museveni could gain education from public schools and has superintended over the destruction of public schools. That's what he has done.
You privatize the economy.
You see, education is a public good. It's not a private thing. It's a public good. And yes, you can privatize traders and factories. Education, I beg your pardon, is a public good. And I have talked about and presented on this program how countries in the world fund education. You know? You see, the strength of any country resides in the knowledge that resides in that country. That's what determines the strength of any country. Knowledge or otherwise. Today, Africa, forget about Uganda alone, Africa has an existential danger because of the absence of knowledge. Knowledge, the knowledge gap between Africa and other countries. And so the building of knowledge cannot be left just to parents. That if a parent has no interest or ability to build knowledge in their children, that is the end of it, they are condemned. Because intelligence is God-given. And it will reside anywhere, whether your parents are gifted to have ability to educate you or not. It is that potential that every country must capture and develop. That's why education must be a public good. When Mr. Museveni was growing up, there were also some private schools for those who failed to access government schools. Yes, the leftovers.
So private was for the leftovers?
Absolutely. They would go and be cared for in the private schools. Today it is the opposite,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And that is what is the biggest crime, I think, that the NRM junta has done for this country, you know? And, you know, I've told you that what is budgeted to support a child in our primary and the most important element of education is at the lowest level, where you build the foundation.
Yes.
We provide a capitation of $3 per child. $3 per year per child. $3. 10,000 shillings. We pay 10,000 shillings per child per year. That means every term is about 3,000.
And there's a private school charging 4 million for that child.
Yes. You see, in the developed world,
Yes, sir.
a child is provided between, you know, $7,000 and about $40,000, depending on the different countries' abilities. So you are comparing a child in whom you are investing $3 to compete with a child in whom they are investing a minimum of $7,000. And you think you will compete. It's nonsense. You know, I've seen on social media somebody was comparing what they do in primary school. In the one school, they have equipment, they are learning how to make all kinds of things. Every kid has a table with equipment and so on. And in our schools, they were a teacher teaching them, I don't know to repeat. It's a joke that we are engaged in.
Yes.
And my anger is not towards Mr. Museveni and his junta.
Yes,
because their mission, anybody who cares to know their mission will know that they are working well on their own mission. My anger goes to the parents of these kids that are being condemned. My anger goes to all these citizens who are sitting around as the death of their society is going on. So you have Mrs. Museveni, who is the Minister of Education, you know, and with all due respect, you know, she is a symbol of the absence of, I think, because she got her education degree fraudulently itself. Everybody knows that. You know, to have an education, to have a degree in education, the most important thing is to do in that process is to have experience in teaching, so that you know what it takes to provide information to kids and for kids to get it.
Yes.
What they call practical, you know, the teaching practice. How do you get a degree when you have never done any teaching practice anywhere? That you have been given lessons in a state house and you go to graduate as a teacher. It's wrong. And Makerere should be ashamed of itself for producing Mrs. Museveni and giving her a degree of Makerere University, where I got my own degree. You are abusing me. I'm sorry. Because the standards must be kept regardless of the station of somebody in society. The standard of education must be maintained. So, somebody who gets an education degree fraudulently is the Minister of Education. That's where it starts, you know.
Yes, sir.
And I hear she doesn't even go to Parliament to account. Parliament has to go to her in State House if it wants her.
She has 2 offices. So.
Yeah, but does she come? You see, public accountability is through Parliament. You must go to Parliament, which is public. It's like a court where me, a citizen, can also go and hear what is going on. She has not sat in Parliament for the last 3 years. She has never been to Parliament. Yet she's the Minister of Education. So she doesn't account to Ugandans. She sits in the State House releasing results, and that is a function, you know, and media releasing. That is not an important thing. Results can be released whether the minister is there or not, you know. But there are more important things that should be taken care of, that are not being taken care of. People are talking about the fees structure.
Yes.
And there have been demands and so on in Parliament, nowhere to be seen.
Doctor,
the junior minister, her junior minister, is one of the biggest private school owners, is the junior minister. How will the conflict of interest, and I of course also hear that she herself has also interests in schools. So that conflict of interest, we have been saying that private schools have become the center of education and public schools have died. So if you are the biggest private school owner, how will you take interest in the public schools you are supposed to oversee?
Let's start from there.
So the conflict of interest and so on is part of the scam that education faces today.
Okay.
Over the last nearly 40 years, Mr. Museveni and his family have been building some kind of an apartheid system. Separate development.
Exactly.
That one is not, I talk quite emotionally about some of these things that have happened. Because, you know, the reason you have, and he, you know, he talks very freely about it. He says, you know, we are making UPE for those who have for the, you know, for the lowest people. They are the ones we are making this education for. You know, people who are who have no choice. You know, that's where it's the dumping ground for them. And you know, it's fundamentally wrong. The other time we were here, I was telling you about the preferential education that was in that Kanyariero school.
Yes, Kanyariero.
You know, where they fund, where, you know, the $3 per year does not apply. Yet they get the money from the same pocket as the others who get $3. So they use public money to provide a different type of education for some people, including in, you know, secondary schools like Ntare, where Mr. Museveni studied. It's a public school. It was built by our money. It is still funded by the state. But to go to Ntare school, you must pay something like close to 3 million a term. In other words, it has been now set aside for privileged. A Museveni of those days cannot go to Ntare where he went today. He has made it exclusive for the rest of his type to go there. You know, this is the shameful thing that has happened in education. And it's not just education. They have created the country, an apartheid system in the country. Healthcare, you know, ordinary people will, you know, go to the government institutions to die. This is why I was in all my campaigns calling it, you know, death centers. They are not health centers, they are death centers. You go there knowing you are going, you have no option. Where else can I go? Let me go to the death center, die there. You know? Because where else you could get some slightly better health care is unaffordable. So even in the government, the very government institutions, you know, I have again talked here about the experience I personally faced when I took a patient to Mulago. And they had to write everything she had to buy in order to be operated on.
Yes.
Including gowns for theater for the doctors. The patient in Mulago has to buy. And they write, I have a list, and we bought. Yes. I have a list of everything, including this, the thread, the stitches, the suture material, which they will use to stitch the wounds. The patient has to provide before the patient can be taken to theater.
So if they don't have money, That one is dead.
This is in the National Referral Hospital. So when we talk about education, I am very, very emotional because I grew up when both my parents had died. My district, then Kigezi district, gave me a bursary because orphans were given bursaries by the district. My district gave me a bursary that would pay all my fees for secondary school. Everything paid for by the district. And of course it was even then not, so much as it is. I can't remember what the school fees that time in secondary school was, because the shilling of then and now have no relevance, but it was I think the school fees was possibly in hundreds. It could have been like 120 or something shillings a term, or 90 shillings a term, because as I have said, when I started school, my school fees was 3 shillings a term. So, what has happened to education is possibly the single biggest disaster that this country will face. Because even these ones, they say they have passed.
Yes.
If you interrogate if you analyze the knowledge they have, and you see them jubilating, they have passed, you find they really have no knowledge.
Yes.
That you can equate to the knowledge that other people have, Even here within the country, as I have said, there are people with different curricula.
Yes.
Those children of ministers, or most ministers, maybe not all, will be in the international school system. Those are not among those whose results are being announced. Those have a different system altogether. And once they finish maybe the high school here, they go to universities abroad. Their systems don't lead them to Makerere or to university, the Christian university, or they lead them to other universities. So this is what I'm telling you, that we have developed an apartheid type of education.
25 years from now, what does that mean to the country? 25 years from today?
You don't have to wait for 25 years. Even today, the products of education from all our universities are unemployable. Literally. That's the result. Today, don't have to wait for 25 years. When we qualified, you could take your degree and get registered to practice medicine anywhere. You could. With Makerere Medical School degree, you could get registered.
One would say the professionals were few.
To practice anywhere.
The professionals were few at the time.
The professionals were in the world. No. You see, even
today
now,
there is a lot of education. People have been
the question is whether, you see, because now, even to go to Kenya, you are required to do an exam in order to be registered, in order to be eligible to practice. If you have come from Makerere and you must sit an exam to prove that you are registrable. That is the situation I'm talking about, and that is the whole range of products that we have, This is the, and you find students, I have seen, even now, I haven't analyzed, but, and by the way, I think I should congratulate a certain girl, you know, which, you know, this girl, very, very, there is a girl called Gloria Ejang. This is a girl who did primary school in some remote primary school in Otuke, and got 4 points.
Wow.
And she got eventually a scholarship from some people and went to secondary school. She has got 8 in 8, but she got 2 in English. So she did 10 subjects, and in 8 she has 8, but she got a 2 in English. And I was wondering, you know, why. So she has 1 in mathematics, 1 in physics, 1 in chemistry, 1 in all of these, but 2 in English. And I've been looking at the school, you know, the schools of other. You see girls who are getting, or boys who are getting 1, 1, 1, 5 in English. 1, 1, 1, 6 in English. So and it is so, even just communication. You know, you see a write-up from our students, and I'm not saying English is anything special, but it's a medium of communication. You know, that's how you express yourself, you interact with others, you do, or you know, if we had Kiswahili, if we were training people in Kiswahili, that would be a great thing. Yeah. And you would have to speak a good Kiswahili to communicate and express yourself and market yourself and do. And you know, it used to be compulsory to pass English in order to advance.
Yes.
Of course, maybe because of the colonial, but also because it's critical to have the ability to communicate effectively. It seems English is one of those that has now clearly receded, because when you talk to people coming out of the university and you assess their English, it's really worrying. It's really worrying.
Doctor, there is a question here from a gentleman called Kwehayo Vernon. He says, Doctor, please talk about Uganda's universities versus Council of Higher Education in relation to the expired degrees since you are in the education sector. Who is to blame the expired courses these days that people are studying?
Well, it is, you see, it is a dysfunctional system. The system of education, which I have talked about, is simply dysfunctional. And it will not change. This is what I've been saying, you know, that we really must have a grand reset for the country to start picking up and moving in a coordinated and systematic way. There is dysfunctionality at every level, whether it is at the they call it Center for Higher Education. What do they call that?
National Council for Higher Education.
National Council for Higher Education. There is dysfunctionality. At the ministry level, the entire policy making level, there is dysfunctionality. At the local administration level, in the district councils, there is dysfunctionality. At the level of the institutions themselves,
yes, sir,
what we call universities in quotes, there is a total dysfunctionality in all of them, including Makerere, which should have been the example for all others. I have been telling you what is happening at Makerere at the moment.
They even procure degrees these days.
Yeah, so there is dysfunctionality at all level. It does not make sense to try and assign responsibility for one of the problems that bedevils the system. The whole system, and it's not just education, it's not just health, which I referred to, it is in the whole system of governance. It's because the focus of the junta led by the Museveni family is not public goods. It's not the public good. It is building a private good for themselves and actually crippling all others so that they may not challenge it. That is, so even the killing of education, the killing of business, the impoverishment I have been saying is structural. It's deliberate. And
it is worrying.
We just have to overhaul the whole lot and build state systems afresh.
So these